unique place now where advertiser-funded or advertiser-related funded content will become a bigger reality. Okay, and I think to your point, Warren, about Comcast and the fact that we're going to start to see film in the home more often. You know, Castaway, I think, was a great example of how far an organic idea can reach. Because that film would not have worked had it been a Global Air Express. We actually felt for the brand.
No, I agree with you. I know of 3 feature films in London. One is backed by Bulgari, the other one's backed by Denzyl, and there's one other. And you never see jewellery or jeans in the films. But the sensibility and the values and what the stories are talking about, they come into contact with that sort of lifestyle. So I agree with that.
Absolutely.
Mitch, we're talking about movies as if that is the near-term dominant media. When I think about the web and the content that's on it, I think of that which is encyclopedic. I think of the notion that Bill Gates had when he wanted to migrate the PC to having from having had a floppy drive to a CD-ROM drive, and motivating consumers to pay the incremental cost. Well, it was called Encarta, which was the driver for consumers adopting CD-ROM drives. It seems to me that search, well, be it a portal like MSN, a search engine like Google, we are a vast world of different people looking for very different things, and are thrilled when we find a community of people that have like questions or answers. I think that the content, particularly audio-visual content, that should be professionally developed in the short run is that overused phrase, niche. It isn't per se that the long-form theatrical feature film is the be-all and end-all for driving video on the internet. It may be the more specialized subjects, the video information, the video content that may be available in England that isn't available in the United States. It is the counter-programming, in essence, to what is available conventionally.
I agree with you, Warren. I come back to a point you made this morning about Michael Mann films, and I've seen them now a couple of times, and noticed that sometimes teenagers watching them actually sort of play games during them. So they're boring of it. They're getting tired of the 2.5 hour sort of length, the conventions of it. There's much more exciting possibilities and worlds in games. So I think they're moving away from it.
There's a great opportunity with things like the Talent Campus that's happening here, of really developing the young filmmakers who will intuitively understand this medium much better than we will, people like me, and will develop content and movies in a short form perhaps, or in a different form, certainly global, the opportunity to go global rather than just be very local. And I think that's the type of area that has a real opportunity to develop.
And that's exactly what music videos created, a new generation of filmmakers who had a style that conventional older people did not have. There's a new template, a new palette for people to work on.
And the thing that Denzyl spoke about earlier with Radar, where bands were working with music video makers, young talent, is a fantastic way forward. And I'd love to be able to have that type of content on MSN all the time. I think it's got a great opportunity.
Well, you
remember
remember
one more thing to say about music video, which there was a time not too in the distant past where people thought that you made a music video, it got shown on MTV, and then it was gone. And look, in this day and age, one of the most popular downloaded contents on places like iTunes are music videos. So there has been, when everyone thought that their videos were lost and gone forever, you can now purchase them And what we're seeing is that a lot of people are purchasing them, and that is very encouraging, I think, for everything that we're talking about today.
I think the niche is actually even tighter than that. You know, you're seeing music video directors able to sell libraries of the music videos that they've done in retail. We get a chance to see things like BMW Films happen. I wrote the strategy piece for BMW Films, and it was the first online experience when there really wasn't an online experience to be had. Propaganda Films, we all remember Propaganda Films, I assume. That place was built to develop directors. And when you look at the directors that that company developed, David Fincher, Michael Bay, Michel Gondry, we're starting to see the greater filmmakers starting to come from a commercials sensibility, understanding the consumer, as opposed to we go to a dark room, we write a script, and we come out and we say it's the perfect film for 18 to 25-year-old African-American males. Based on what?
Well, there's a downside to all of this. When I was head of international marketing for Warner Brothers on the theatrical side, I was always having to answer the questions as to why pictures will perform in certain markets and not others, and what the level of performance will be. And one of the things that I observed was that American audiences have an attention span of maximum 12 minutes.
You're very generous.
That the American public has been sadly conditioned by the interruption of programming every 12 minutes for how many hours of minutes of commercials. And in Europe, where the frequency of commercials on state broadcasters, and now I'm going back to the 70s before there was denationalization of television and satellite, commercial satellite networks, we used to see movies that told stories that couldn't sell in America that did very well in Europe, because storytelling does take time. Characters do evolve in the context of the story, and drama has its own beginning, middle, and ends. If you don't create a beginning, middle, and end in 12 minutes in an American television show, you lose the audience.
Well, some would argue that the advent of MTV actually created this problem.
I would say that MTV and video games, and will now add YouTube to that phenomenon, will have the attention span of the public reduced to a 30-second interval. And
perfect for the advertiser.
With a beginning, middle, and end.
I know the European ministers of culture and communication will welcome that. I think that's one of the sad byproducts of the American broadcast system, which was built on the notion of commercialization, not necessarily the public interest.
Absolutely. And your point about storytelling is very important here, because everything is really meant to tell a story, isn't it? We see advertising, terrific advertising tells you a story. You know, they're little movies. And the notion of being able to tell linear stories at this point is very difficult, is it not, David?
In which sense?
In the context of creating software for multiple platforms. To Warren's point about, you know, what are films going to be? Are we going to be looking at 2-hour films, or are we going to be looking at 20-minute films?
I mean, if you look at some of the experimental filmmakers and some of the sort of, you know, the renaissance that's happened in shorts, there seems to be some sort of level of making different versions, i.e. one that would be made for the cinema, one that would be made for viewing on your computer screen, and that a little bit like how you accommodate DVD, video, and television. So I think that there's definitely people that are working on ways of being able to have their films distributed mass platform. I mean, obviously, it's not going to suit you know, the 5-minute long take from an obscure Turkish art house film, where you've got to stay with that take to understand some deep characterization. But hopefully that can find a platform as well, where people will actually enjoy the sort of, a bit like watching a painting, that it's a really calming sort of space to watch a long take.
Well, it's about the particular audience groups.